Because to know where you started and see, like you said, to see where music is now, Nigerian music is now being worldwide and global. That's great. So when you started doing music, did you tell your parents? How did they find out, or did you tell them?
My dad wasn't around much because he was an engineer on the road all the time.
Right.
But my mom knew. She didn't. I guess it kept me busy.
Okay.
So as far as she was concerned, nobody took it serious.
Mm-hmm.
Until when I started to ask to buy equipment that was run into the thousands of dollars and thousands of pounds. And my mom, she was, just very graceful about the whole thing. She supported it.
Mm-hmm.
She paid for equipment. She paid for like studio sessions. She paid for our first album to be made, Tribesmen. She paid for the first video to be made. She paid for equipment. She paid for travel. She paid for clothes for even the group. You know what I mean? Like, so she really supported it even when it didn't make sense. And if you're in Nigeria in 1996 and you have a child who is starting university and then the son comes to you and tells you, oh, I'm going on tour on this music stuff.
Right.
The average Nigerian parent would be like, shit, you did crazy, they weren't me. Like, what? Right. What are you on? But my mom was different.
Wow.
And I don't know what it was that made her so different in such, she went completely against the grain.
Wow.
In saying, oh, sure, if that's what you want to do, and if you feel like, if you like it, and, as long as it's safe.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember my first tour was Rothman's Groove in 2006. I did this as a solo artist.
Wow.
This is way before Tribesmen.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went on tour with Rothman's is a cigarette brand, right? So that in itself was like a red flag to the average parent. But my mom said, as long as you don't start smoking, just, go with them, be nice, make sure you're safe, and blah, blah, blah. And I went on a bunch of campuses with them. And it gave me my first chance to actually perform in front of an audience that had no idea who I was. So there was a lot of training that came from being in that position. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it how soon or long after that did you get your first record deal, or let's say first album drop or solo album, group album?
Nobody wanted to sign us because we didn't make the kind of music that was popular at the time.
Right.
So we couldn't get a record deal. I went everywhere. I went to what was left of Sony Music at the time. They turned us down. EMI turned us down. Premier Records turned us down. Even the show promoters that we would go to turned us down. Like, everyone turned us down. I remember going to, this is one memorable event. I went to Eddie Lawani's office. Eddie Lawani is a big time promoter, is a legend, A lot of people don't know him on the front end, but if you have anything to do with entertainment, you know what I'm talking about. Big shout out to him. So I went to his office one time. It's like, yo, you guys need to put us on. You have all these gigs that they produce shows. So they used to do like all the big concerts and stuff. It's like, yo, you guys need to put us on, blah, blah, blah. Once we get in front of the audience, these record labels will see and they'll recognize that we do have something, right? But, so he was like, yeah, man, I really like you, and blah, blah. Talk to my guys, whatever. I think he was busy that day. And the guy that I spoke to, he said to me, no, this music you people are making, go sell. You gotta do some reggae, do some this and that. But I was so convinced, and I, was so clear about what we were creating that I decided to start my own label. So to answer your question, because we couldn't get signed, I created my own label. And I saw that also as part of the blueprint. I had seen that from like Flavor Unit and LONS and The Tribe and everybody else who I had seen that was signed. That was one of the ways to get out there, is if you can figure out somehow some mechanism for promo and distribution, you could do it on your own.
Right.
So I created my own label. So Tribe Records became that label, and first album, well, we dropped a lot of singles. We didn't do a lot of albums. So the first album that we dropped was in 2001.
Okay.
Of course, this whole thing started in like 97, 98.
Right.
But the first time we had a big drop was in 2000.
Okay. And at this time where you were dropping singles and then eventually dropped your first album, what was your creative process? Were you really good at that point? Were you still learning? Did you have your own style? Did you get your own pocket and learn how to do music in your own way?
I feel like I always had my own style because I was sort of creating a blend of everything that I've been influenced by, but making sure that it had a Nigerian essence, right? So that the soul of it is Nigerian, right? Whether so it's what I'm saying, it's how I'm saying it, right? However, I do remember an event that occurred that I think eventually shaped my delivery. The very first session we had as Tribesmen, I lost my voice.
Oh, wow.
So while we were in studio recording, well, I produced the beat, so I was doing the production, everybody else went and did their verses. And by the time it was my turn to do mine, my voice was going. So I was like, I gotta get it. And so somehow I went ahead and did it anyway. Because, hey, we already paid for the session.
Right.
We had to complete the record, right?
Right.
So I go ahead and I do my verse that way anyway. And then, I'll give you the track. So maybe you could, when you listen to it, you hear exactly what I'm talking about.
All right.
And so that's how my delivery sort of became what it was as a rapper. Because the rasp, it came from there.
Right.
It came, and I heard it, and I was playing back for people, and people were like, oh, okay, that kind of sounds good. And then I did something else, and they're like, nah, you gotta do it the other way. I was like, no, I did that because my voice was gone.
It's funny that you say that because the first time I heard you, I think I was going to a wedding, and they were playing, and I was like, who's this? Because I had never heard, Nigerian music in like a rap form.
Right.
For me personally, when I was coming up, so that's interesting that you say that.
Yeah, that's sort of how that happened.
For more DXR media content, follow us on our socials. More content's on the way.